Something that we do internally, we name our use cases after the people who needed our drones that day. So we have the Tamir Rice use case, okay? We have the Philando Castile use case. We have the Walter Scott use case. Sometimes the bad guy is the cop, and the cops know that. They eagerly anticipate a day where our technology will assist them in weeding those guys out.
The startup investment landscape is changing, and world-class companies are being built outside of Silicon Valley. We find them, talk with them, and discuss the upside of investing in them. Welcome to Upside.
Hello, and welcome to the Upside Podcast, the first podcast finding upside outside of Silicon Valley. I'm Eric Hornung, and I'm accompanied by my co-host, Mr. Airport Selfie himself, Jay Klaus.
You've caught on to my trend.
Caught on. I've been trying to ignore it for so long.
I'm trying to make it a thing. Every time that I fly anywhere from the Columbus Airport, John Glenn International Airport, I go up to the nearly broken kiosks that have what is called a postcard feature, where you can take a essentially selfie with this kiosk, and it frames it with one of like 16 stock images that are all bizarre, bad-looking frames. I think that are just ripped off of designs of postcards, but I do it every time.
Do you think that you're the only person who does that?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
It's true. So what really just bothered me is like we put out some great content on Twitter, like, oh, there's this like great thread with all this detail and thought, and you post this stupid airport selfie and it gets like 25 likes.
You got a lot of engagement. It's good. And the camera itself is so broken. It seems like it's an old webcam, it looks like, inside this thing, and there's no way to adjust the height of this camera. And all of the kiosks just seems like the camera has broken and is facing almost down at the floor. So for me to even get in that photo, I have to contort myself and look up at this thing. So it doesn't even look good anymore.
No, it doesn't look like, it doesn't look natural at all. It looks like you're like, I don't know, like there's a scanner like facing the floor and you are literally getting under it. It's fantastic.
It's like a voluntary mugshot at the airport. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, find me on Instagram.
Yeah, so where were you flying?
Flying to Vegas for CES, where we're sitting here still at the Blue Audio podcasting suite.
Yeah, we are here in Vegas, and our interview today actually has to do a little bit with flight, doesn't it?
These puns, yes. Our interview today is with Leah La Salla, who is the co-founder and CEO of Astral AR. Astral AR builds drones that stop bullets and save lives regardless of visibility. They work with public safety officials, SWAT rescues, schools, and other large venues. Their drones are unbiased by design on behalf of public safety, and they've given full insight into their technology to the ACLU, and they've been endorsed by Black Lives Matter, along with the American College of Emergency Physicians. This is intense sounding technology, Eric.
This is not light. This is like a real issue, it feels like. Like, I feel like a lot of times we're solving here on Upside, a marketplace that could be more efficient, or cuddle clones. It's like something that's light and airy and makes you feel good. This is something that's scary and real and a big point of contention in the United States today.
Yeah. And I love this concept of, so many people are heavily in the gun control debate, right? And the foregone conclusion seems to be we need to craft public policy to change this. And Astral AR is basically saying, regardless of public policy, we're going to do something about this. And it's through a solution which on its surface sounds crazy and kind of bizarre.
Insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
If you look at their website, all of their messaging, we build drones that stop bullets. Crazy.
Yeah. There's a video of like one of the drones taking a 50 caliber round and it just exploding.
Yeah. The bullet obliterates.
Yeah. I still don't really get it. And I think that that's something that hopefully we learn a little bit more about in the interview.
Hopefully. The company is based in Austin, Texas, was founded in 2015 by Leah and her co-founder, Jose. They've raised $650,000 in convertible debt to this point from friends and family, Backstage Capital, Treehouse Capital, and Monero.
So it's interesting. You mentioned that they're endorsed by Black Lives Matter and
American College of Emergency Physicians.
American College of Emergency Physicians. They're working with police. So, and they're in a very pro-gun state, in a very liberal town in a pro-gun state. So I feel like that location has to matter for Astral.
I would think so. And, we're sitting here in Las Vegas, where there was the tragedy at the country music concert. I remember reading an article that was kind of an op-ed from a physician at one of the hospitals here in Las Vegas after that event happened. And it was a very graphic description of the human body in the wake of this type of automatic weapon being used. Because what they talked about, it was an argument for gun control in public policy, basically saying in situations where there are shooting victims, handguns cause a much different profile of damage than automatic weapons. And it described what automatic weapons do to the organs, the different pieces of the body that physicians just simply can't do anything about because it absolutely destroys them and there's no way to reconcile it. It was horrific describing this, where they said, I've been on call when handguns have been used and there's an entry wound, there's an exit wound, we can fix that. But with automatic weapons, organs explode and there's just nothing we can do about it.
So I think that kind of sets the stage for what is going to be a pretty intense interview. Are you ready for this?
Yep, let's do it.
Hey guys, wanted to cut in here real quick and let you know about something Jay and I have been getting ready behind the scenes in 2019. When we started this podcast, Jay and I said that you, the listener, would have an opportunity to learn in real time, to think like venture investors with us as we meet a wide variety of personalities and examine a wide range of industries. Well, now we're going to share something new, and it's a little different. This new idea is called The Update. It's a carefully curated quarterly publication of editorials, trends, and stories happening outside of Silicon Valley. Jay and I will be writing stories about what we're learning about on the podcast, have guest editorials on interesting topics, and share news and updates from our podcasts. In some cases, we may even share some exclusive content or first looks. Our goal is to stay at the cutting edge, and of course, bring you along with us. We're super excited about it and know you're going to love it. If you want to be the first to hear about our Q1 launch and subsequent letters, go to upside.fm/update to get on the mailing list.
Leah, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here at CES.
Yep, you know it. We won a free booth. Indiegogo 2019 Innovative Product Award.
Look at that. We got a free booth too, but it wasn't through anything as impressive.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. So we like to start here on Upside with a background history of the founder. So can you tell us about the history of Leah?
I can tell you a little bit. Let's see. I just work here. I know, right? So I am the CEO and technical founder of Astral AR. I spent 15 years as a software developer. Before that, I spent 5 years as a Fed.
That's awesome.
So that helps a great deal in navigating our way through the bureaucracies that we have to deal with in order to get our technology into play. So,
Can you talk to me more about that? I mean, Fed, I have some ideas, but what does that look like?
bringing our technology into play, or just to briefly touch upon my co-founder is Jose. He's not here with me today, but he is the only member of the Air Force I've ever met who's been shot, and this is totally relevant. Okay, I know, right? Look at that face.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a tough guy. He won't admit it, but he's a tough guy. Iraq, Afghanistan, Air Force veteran, off-site communications.
Can you tell me more about your time as a Fed and what that role looked like and what it taught
Not
you?
really, but yes, I can. I was IRS. Yeah, actually, I was compliance services and collections operations. I was the person who saved you from the long and remarkably sticky fingers of Uncle Sam. I was the person who would intervene and try to get you set up with a payment plan or deferred, or yeah, you get the idea. So like I said, my ability to navigate bureaucracies is non-par.
Uh-huh. And so where did you grow up? You're in Austin now. Did you
Yep,
grow up in
I am
Austin?
from Chicago.
Okay.
So I'm actually from a small town just outside of Chicago, which is actually more violent than Chicago. It's called Rockford, Illinois. You may have heard of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, in the Batman series Gotham, yeah, Rockford is Bloodhaven.
I actually lived in Chicago for a little bit, so I'm familiar.
Yeah, Rockford.
Yeah.
It's a great. He's all backing away, right? She might mug me. You never know. Yeah, no, Rockford. It's a great place to be from.
Before we dive too far in the interview, there's what looks to be a cast on your arm.
That is correct. So, the day that I flew out to CES, I managed to fall off of a 4.5-foot loading bay door, landed flat on my palm, broke my wrist, got on the plane, and here I am. And the reason for that is I will see a doctor. I will see a doctor after the event, and I have to be here because this is more important. Quite frankly, people are dying.
I really appreciate that dedication because that's not even a real cast. That is
a bandage. It's an ace bandage. Ace bandage and ibuprofen on a broken wrist because, you know what, there are worse things in this world, quite frankly. As far as all things are considered, I got off easy, and I'm grateful for that. So here we are.
So tell me about how you came to this. Let's talk about the mission before we get to the idea and the technology and the business itself.
How did we get to drones that stop bullets?
Yes. How did you get that?
Right. So actually, we were building drones to begin with, but we did not have this focus right off the bat. We had some vague designs, some vague aspirations that really coalesced when someone asked us if we could make our drones somehow help the people in Baltimore. So
How were you making drones? Give me back there. Sorry.
So, okay, so I had...
you were in the IRS. You were...
No.
And all of a sudden you're
then
building
15
drones.
years as a software developer, right? 15
Right.
years, I program in 9 languages. My students are typically senior developers at this point. Yeah, and so what actually happened was I was shoved off the glass cliff. I and a couple of my women dev friends, because we all know each other, right? We're all talking in the same Slack channel. No, really, that's the thing. And there's one woman on every team, so we're kind of like a spy network. It's great. So a couple of my closest friends had also been laid off, and just at the same time, and the three of us together were like, I have an idea. I just so happened to be... Well, a friend of mine dropped a link to an AR visor. Dropped it. Just somebody come up with an excuse to use these, and I just so happened to be looking at a library for modifying a Parrot AR drone programmatically, and I have an idea. Somebody else dropped a link to an EEG monitor, electroencephalographic monitor, produced by Emotive. We managed because we were, we had a university connections at that time, University of Maryland. We were able to secure a very small grant from the University of Maryland that purchased the first hardware, the AR visors, the EEG sensors, and the drone. And the very first thing that we built was a drone that you fly with your mind in augmented reality. So you think bank left and the drone banks left. Yes, this is all subject to patent. Yes, it absolutely works. It is extremely accurate. I can strafe my co-founder within an inch from his face without touching him. I know, right?
All by thinking it?
Yeah. I think bank left and the drone banks left. I'm probably the most skilled pilot that we have because I built it. It took me about 6 weeks. It was lots of fun. I got to tell you, it was less fun for my co-founder because his job was to catch the drone. I was learning how to fly it as I was, inventing it. It was kind of an adventure. I assure you, my mech bears the scars of being used as a shield.
When you think bank left in that scenario, are you thinking bank left 3 feet? Are you thinking bank left to a certain location?
You see from the drone's perspective in augmented reality, you think left until you don't want it to go left anymore. It's extremely intuitive. You think of where you want the drone to go the same way you think of where you want your body to grow. That's really the best analogy I can give you, is that it's kind of like if you just grew a second body and one of you can fly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit smaller.
I mean, no, really, honestly, and I have to say, there's going to be a whole, weird field of psychology is going to be created as a consequence of this, because you get real weird about the drone. You get offended when other people touch it, just reach out and grab it, you want to slap them, get your hands off my drone.
My appendage,
right?
non-attached appendage.
Right, this is a part of, it becomes a part of your body, and somebody just, and you just want to slap the out of them. Can I say that? Can I say that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
You can say whatever you want.
Oh, don't tell me that. Right? I will turn the air purple. I'm a software developer. Come on.
One thing you did say earlier is glass cliff. It's not a term I'm familiar with. Can you kind of explain what that is a little bit?
Okay, we're going to go into the weeds. It's
this is
if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Margaret Rossiter, her field of work is on the situation of women professionally. And one of the terms that she invented was the term glass cliff, that a woman will rise in her career to a certain point. She will become, once you get past a certain point, you will be, the only way to proceed past that point is to accept roles that are extremely precarious, that no man would want. It's a glass cliff waiting for you to fail and shove you off. It's not a glass ceiling, it's a glass cliff. And you will eventually, inevitably be shoved off the glass cliff. So at this point, I was about as high, I'd risen about as high in my career as one can without entering into the C-suite. I was, strictly engineering, did not want to go into the business aspect of this at all. I was originally our CTOs. My original 2 co-founders churned out. Both of them were women. Neither one of their husbands wanted them to be involved in a startup. I swear to God.
So you just mentioned that you were originally the CTO. Now you're in the CEO role.
Yeah, battlefield promotion.
At what point did you see yourself being an entrepreneur?
So I had a really hard time. I had a really hard time convincing the other two that this was real or could be real. If you're familiar with the analogy of the pig and the chicken and the pig, that story,
I'm not.
Okay, so there's a startup analogy of a pig and a chicken, and the chicken comes up with this idea, and we should start a restaurant, and we're going to call it Bacon and Eggs. And I've got all these spreadsheets, and everything's going to be great, and I've got it all worked out, and the margins are going to be perfect, and let's do this. And the pig is like, I don't know, man. As far as I can tell, if we do this, I'm committed. You're involved. Okay? Yeah. I was committed. They were involved.
I see.
So I'm a disabled single teenage mother of color, and both of them are, it's totally different situations for them. For me to throw myself into this has always been, I have absolutely nothing between me and the ground. There is no safety net, and no one is going to catch me. And so that was the situation that I was facing. I was our CTO originally because I was the most skilled technically. The two of them have, both of them are excellent engineers, but both of them have other different strengths, much stronger than me in a lot of business ways. And I ended up, I took us seriously, and they did not.
Yeah. So we left kind of the story with you developing a augmented reality
The piloting system.
And
We
somewhere in the middle, well, we get the drones at the end, but somewhere in the middle, something happens that you, we get the bullets at the end.
We pivot.
Okay, yeah, you
right?
pivot. So why did you pivot? And
So it started with Baltimore.
Okay.
Think of a way to help the people in Baltimore, and that's when we started thinking about shield drones. Okay, that's when we started thinking about drones that would somehow shield people. The original design for this was just ridiculous, and I'm not even going to talk about it because it's just don't ask, okay? But it was inspired by the protesters in Hong Kong, hands up, don't shoot, okay? Where they were trying to shield themselves from incoming tear gas. And then I had the brainwave of Mike Brown would not have happened if the cop had known that he was unarmed to begin with. There would have been, and also, if there were some way to shield him, to shield that situation, you think about it and you think, if you break down the problem, you debug it, if you will, break it down to its smallest possible size, what you find is that the problem is the bullets. You need a wall. What you need is a wall. You need one now. You need one right now. That's what inspired the shield drones. And in finally settling on the armor that we were able to source less than 0.5 gram per cubic centimeter, capable of stopping up to a 50 caliber round. So as you can imagine, a 50 cal will knock the drone completely out of the sky, or you would think, we have designed the armor in such a fashion that this is not necessarily the case, and anything smaller than that is not going to take the drone down.
how do you source armor?
There is a woman researcher. All of us women, we all know each other. There's a woman researcher in North Carolina who happens to be working on extremely lightweight armor. That's where we first started with this. One of my interns just so happens to have been a student of a researcher in Colombia who is working on very similar armor. It's actually lighter. It's not quite, doesn't have quite the same level of strength for impact and things like that, but it is lighter. And in the case of the police, we don't necessarily expect them to come up against a whole lot of howitzers. So we err in favor of the lighter weight armor that is perfectly capable of stopping the arms that we expect them to run into.
I want to make sure I'm tracking on timeline. What was the timeline for starting with the piloting software, and then when did you pivot towards the armor?
So we pivoted, I want to say, early 2016. It was South by Southwest, actually. That was when we actually met the police. We showed them what we had built, and they asked us to adapt this to become a flying tricorder.
What's a tricorder?
You know, like Star Trek, tricorder.
I've never watched Star Trek.
Get out.
You're going to have to. This is my show.
Damn it. I'm so used to being the CEO, I'm all, you're fired, get out. Damn it. I can't fire. Fine, I quit. Seriously, a tricorder, flying tricorder. I've never had anyone respond with, I have no idea what that is. I don't know how to help you.
Well, just help me explain the form factor, like how it plays into the story.
A tricorder is a handheld device that scans a situation or a scenario and relays situational awareness to whoever the user is. Usually of a medical nature, but sometimes of just simply a situational, are there people in the area, what's going on?
And so what did you show them at South by Southwest? What was the form factor of the technology then?
They actually guided that conversation because we brought up Baltimore and that we've been asked and that we're working on this shield idea, and they're like, you have to talk to the cop who flies drones. And that was I can't say his name, protect his privacy, but we've been working with them ever since. They told us exactly what they needed us to build. We had technology already in hand that proved to them that we were capable of producing what they were asking for. So we built it and we showed it to them 1 year, exactly 1 year later we showed it to them. And have you ever been picked up off the ground and hugged by a cop? I mean, hugged, like bear hug, twirled.
I've barely been hugged by anybody.
Well, I can, okay, all right. So I got twirled by a SWAT cop. Okay, I got to tell you, that's intense.
That's awesome.
These guys are When you think about what they have to go through, quite frankly, the psychological fortitude that is necessary, one of the things that we did for this officer, and we did this expressly because, quite frankly, we value him, we value his life, and we value the work that he does in ways that are hard to describe. He is the cop who gets called out to find little dead girls when they drown in Lake Austin. That's amongst the things that this officer has to do. This child, this poor child, she drowned over Memorial Day. She was 6 years old. She fell overboard. People were drunk, no one noticed, and she drowned. It was a tragedy. It was an absolute tragedy. It was a complete accident. God bless her parents. The officer was tasked with recovering what he could. This individual, this child, she drowned in about 100 feet of water. There were fully grown pecan trees down there. If he goes down there, he's going to join her. So he asked if Astral could cover the shipping on a loaner ROV, submersible ROV, so that he doesn't die trying. And we absolutely did that, and he was unsuccessful at recovering her body, but I believe they were able to locate her.
Wow.
That's intense.
Yeah. That's
Welcome
intense.
to my world. I gotta tell you, every single time there is a Parkland, every single time that there is a Las Vegas, we are acutely aware of it.
Now that you've been so close to law enforcement, I would love to take a very short aside here to hear from your perspective what life is like for these individuals now, because
Right.
some bad actors are what get a ton of publicity, and now there's a ton of public
Yep, they know.
belief.
They
so
know.
What does that feel
So
like?
the cops. So let me preface this with the cops that we work with first off, they are SWAT cops. These guys, they've seen it all. They have never killed anyone, and all they want is to make it to retirement with that record unbroken. Okay, that is one of their main objectives in life. Okay, these guys, there is a medal that the cops can get for not beating the out of people, even if they could get away with it. These guys have that medal. Okay, which is saying an awful lot. These guys they're extremely tough. I mean, that's their job, but they won't hurt you unless you make them. And also, yes, they can read your mind. Lying to the cops is completely off the table. Just don't even try. That is my advice. They are aware that there are some bad actors. They are absolutely in favor of getting rid of them. They know what the price is. That is, they are acutely aware. Every time there is a police-involved shooting, they are desperately hoping that the individual who was shot or killed will have been in possession of a firearm, will have been in offense of the law, and it affects them psychologically in ways that are difficult to describe. They're hoping for this because they have a shared sense of responsibility. You may have heard of the blue line. It is a real thing. They have a shared sense of responsibility, and that is very obvious. And we have to be very careful to make sure that they're aware that we're not judging them, that we understand that they don't want to have to do this, but they will if they have to.
For the listeners, what is the blue line if they haven't heard of it?
Okay, so the blue line is the only thing that stands between society and chaos is a thin blue line, is the saying. The blue line is sometimes it's called the blue wall of silence. It's not. These guys are not the blue wall of silence. That's not how they roll. But that is also a thing that can happen when you have too many bad actors. They will work together, and that can be a thing that makes these guys. I mean, it puts them at risk. They know that. All they want to do is they just want to come home tonight. That's all they want to do. And toward that, I didn't get shot, so it must have been a good day. No one died on my watch. It was great. These are their goals. Their landmarks. And for example, our drones are incapable of discerning the difference between friend and foe. They're not capable of distinguishing the difference between the police and the not police. And there are some very good reasons for this. First and foremost, if a bad guy gets a hold of one of our drones and it can tell who is or isn't a cop, all that bad guy has to do is stand outside Walmart. If that guy wants to do a cop, here is the opportunity. This is how he's going to do it. We're not going to help that guy do that thing. So we do not allow the drones to be that smart. They are like a drug dog, okay? If you walk past a drug dog with a kilo of cocaine in your hand, that dog's going to light up, and it doesn't care if you're a cop. It doesn't know any better. The drones, we do not allow the drones to make decisions that need to be reserved for human intelligence. Like, for example, the use of a taser or pepper spray or any other combative, escalation of force. We do not allow the drones to make those decisions under any circumstances. That is reserved for the police officers.
Purely defensive.
Yes, it is just a shield. And now, the thing that our drones do for them is very important. They know that the drone's not going to let anything happen to them. That's what it's there for. And that is very important. But even more important than that is simply the situational awareness of knowing whether or not there's a gun involved before they even get out of the car is so useful to them because they change their stance. You have the right to bear arms. You have rights. But if they know that there is a gun involved, they will change their stance and they will change their approach in a way that is respectful of your rights, but also protects themselves. And that is so powerful. What do cops hate more than anything else? surprises. They cannot handle surprises. And that's usually what gets people killed.
Before we get deeper down that path, can you step back and explain Astral AR today and how it works?
Right, so let me talk a little bit about the drones. What do we do? How do we do it? When we say we build drones that stop bullets, everyone wants to know how. So they want to know, usually technical. What is the technical answer? Okay, so first off, we have developed a sensor array that is capable of detecting guns and bombs through walls. So we can see, at this point, we can see the individual rounds loaded into a gun. We can tell the difference between a fake gun and a real gun, a loaded gun and an unloaded gun. We can tell you how loaded a gun is. We can read the writing on the backs of the shell casings loaded into the gun. And this is extremely important. Something that we do internally, we name our use cases after the people who needed our drones that day. So we have the Tamir Rice use case. Okay, we have the Philando Castile use case. We have the Walter Scott use case. Sometimes the bad guy is the cop, and the cops know that. They eagerly anticipate a day where our technology will assist them in weeding those guys out. Okay, so with that in mind, I have to throw this out there. Cops are trained to shoot using electroshock. Okay, if they don't shoot fast enough, they get shocked. And the reason for that is right now, without technology such as ours, if they don't, they will get killed. That's why they train them like that. But that's a Pavlovian reflex. Do you really want to associate killing someone with a Pavlovian? I mean, that's insane. But that is what that's what we're up against right now. Our technology will change that.
I've never heard that, and it seems unbelievable to me that I've never heard that.
Yep.
Why do you think that is not a fact that is made more public?
Because demonizing the police is easier than digging for why. Quite frankly, demonizing the police, dehumanizing the police, and not seeing the fact that they are afraid for their lives literally the minute they wake up in the morning to the minute they go to bed. Anyone they pull over could be that guy. This could be their lucky day, okay? This is a fear that lurks in the back of their minds at all times, and they are trained like this for a reason. The reason is to save themselves. I have pictures on my phone that I cannot show you, that are law enforcement situations that demonstrate why they do this. An individual having barricaded themselves inside of a house, you have no idea. You can't see them, you have no idea whether they've been wounded, they're ready to give up, do they still want to fight you? They have traded 300 rounds with police, the police have evacuated the neighborhood. What do? Do you go in there, do you run in there, charge in their face first and, face plant on a bullet? Would you do that? Let me check. No, raise your hand if you want to get shot. They don't want to get shot any more than you do. Ask my co-founder, that hurts. They will wait until they know for a fact that they're not going to get killed, even if that means that someone inside is going to die. Because quite frankly, there is no use to throwing away their own lives. I mean, that's not going to save anybody. It's not going to bring anybody back from the dead. I digress.
How many police-involved shootings are there in the U.S. in a year? Do you know?
A lot.
Okay.
I don't even know. They don't know. I don't know. I know that every time there's a police-involved shooting in Austin, we think of our police officers, the ones that we work with. We worry about them. We're like, are you okay? There have been times when I will text them because I'm concerned about their safety. I'm concerned about them psychologically because we actually do care. Because quite frankly, these guys they're human beings. They have wives and kids. They have lives. And every single day, it could be their lucky day.
So what was the impetus for you to say, I'm going to take the route of being involved into this full time? You left a software engineering career that was probably pretty great. So what was the decision to do this full time?
Uber for cats.
Tell me more.
Okay.
Is that what the software engineering role was?
Uber for cats. Show me an app, show me a website, show me an e-commerce platform, blah-diddy blah, whatever, that is not Uber for cats. This is a wicked problem. I cannot escape. I cannot escape this. I will die trying. I will bring this into the world or I will die trying. There is no escape from this. This is a wicked problem, okay? This is not Uber for cats. Show me one other, God bless CES, show me one other startup here that is solving a wicked problem. People are dying. This is Las Vegas. We could have prevented Las Vegas. We designed this technology, this functionality was designed with Sandy Hook in mind, okay? That is hell on earth. That is a waking nightmare. We have a solution to this right now. And honestly, like I've mentioned, Second Amendment rights, no new legislation needs to be passed in order for this to be adopted. I mean, this is ready to rock and roll right now. It is a solution where everyone wins, to the point where we are endorsed by Black Lives Matter, the Fraternal Order of Police, and the American College of Emergency Physicians, because CPR doesn't work if all the blood is on the ground.
Talk to me about, after you had that conversation with the officer at South by Southwest, what has development looked like to this point? How have you guys built this, and what does the technology look like today?
So if we weren't developers ourselves, this would not have been possible, I have to tell you. Because we are engineers, overwhelmingly, most of the money that we have raised has come from other engineers. And as you can imagine, most of it's gone to hardware. If we had to pay for engineering all along, there is no way we would have succeeded. But because we ourselves are capable of producing the technology, we threw ourselves into the science. All of us have thrown ourselves into the science, and that's how we were able to do what we were able to do. We filed a permanent patent, and just to be clear, a lot of this comes from the material support that is provided by corporations like, for example, we are NVIDIA Inception startup. Well, there are some things that I should probably keep to myself just at this time, but yeah, we have partnerships with major players. We receive material support from those organizations. For example, Arrow and D3, we're extremely proud of our partnership with Arrow. D3 is producing our production-ready hardware. Custom silicon is being rolled that's based on the NVIDIA Xavier's and incorporates our sensor array directly onto the silicon so that it has to function fast enough that you would bet your life.
You showed us a video here that obviously the listeners can't have the benefit of seeing. Can you give me kind of a play-by-play, paint the video with your words a little bit, if you can, of a situation or one of the use cases you named and how Astral AR can help?
Okay, Sandy Hook, right? So first things first, there are 19 schools in Central Texas, okay? 19 schools that are lined up for this. And that's because the Director of Emergency Services has decided that she wants this everywhere that we will give her drones to put it. Okay, so all schools at this point have choke points, entry points, okay? They all have metal detectors at this point that are of mixed, somebody will prop a door open and let their friend in, that's always the fear. Our drones will patrol. They will be a lot less invasive. There will be exponentially less of an invasion onto the lives of the students, as you don't have to be wanded to go to class.
And what's the size of this?
We use a standard Intel Arrow, and then we retrofit it to use all of the technology, the armor and so forth.
If you could relate it to the size of some common object that someone might see.
Slightly bigger than a textbook in terms of its dimensions, and probably less than a foot tall.
Okay, so this is patrolling the area around a school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is patrolling, I would say, not the perimeter of the school, but those choke points in particular, unless a school is particularly small geographically. But the entry points, the choke points, and all of the places that are deemed to be the security necessity, and what they are looking for, and their range is pretty substantial. They have about a 20-meter range when they're used in conjunction with one another. They have 20 meters, 10 meters when they're used alone. So about 30 feet to 60 feet, they can see the approach of an individual, and what they're specifically trained to look for is guns and bombs. Any incendiary, they're looking for, I can't really get into too terribly much detail. The police have asked us to be less forthcoming with that. But our white papers were published very recently by the IEEE.
Couple questions on that. Can it see through clothes?
Yes. But it can only see guns, it can only see bombs, it cannot see your body.
One other technical question on just kind of like the specs. One thing that I've understood about drones, and I could be wrong, is that the physics behind them makes like battery life very hard.
We have our batteries custom prototyped by a research facility in North America.
So how long does like a battery last?
It lasts about as long as the average battery. It's 3 times as powerful, but it lasts about the same amount of time because we've loaded up all of this. We've got the armor and the weight of the array. It lasts about 20 to 30 minutes, 45 on the outside. One of the things that we do is we require that schools set up a robotics class if they don't already have one. The robotics class will be charged with keeping the drones, it's basically pit stops. And that will be the responsibility of the robotics class, which is extremely therapeutic for the students. It allows the students to be directly engaged in their own well-being and their own safekeeping, it's cathartic, quite frankly.
So if I'm a school and I only need one drone, I don't have like
there is no such, there's
you said that if it was a small enough
fleets
area,
of 5.
Okay, 5. So if I'm in school and I have 5 drones, or 5 drone spots, do I have to get then like 10 drones since they have to be charging every 30 to 40 minutes?
So the batteries can be rotated out. The batteries have to be charging. The drones do not have to be taken out of commission. The batteries can be removed and replaced instantly. The drones are right back in the air.
Literally like a NASCAR pit stop.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and also this has the added benefit that we're training our own interns. I know, right? That's so awesome. See the CEO in me. I guess I have a knack for this. I was asked to speak at Harvard. It was great. Yeah, apparently I'm good at being a CEO. It's weird. I never would have expected it either. But yeah, it's literally like a NASCAR pit stop.
Who operates this, or is it completely autonomous once you do
It is
some sort of
semi-autonomous.
onboarding?
The drone's capabilities are semi-autonomous. The actual operators are police officers who have been trained by police officers that we work with. We don't train them. We see that is... We work at the direction of the police, not the other way around, and they train other officers, other first responders, firefighters, EMT to be able to fly our drones. We anticipate that they will also be training students at some point. I don't know when they plan on starting that, but that's a thing that they've been talking about.
And who is the customer primarily for Astral AR?
So, in a sense, I mean, raise your hand if you want to get shot. I know, but aside from that, we say police departments, that we focus our active efforts on police departments, fire departments. Directors of emergency services are the ones who usually who bring us on. Obviously, we have to present this to a county commissioner's court. There are various steps that we have to move through in order to get this adopted, but it comes down to the police departments and the fire departments. We actually expect that they will probably be housed by the fire department, not necessarily by the police department. That, again, is up to the discretion of the responders and how they decide to manage things.
I think it's still pretty nascent from like a policy perspective of how drones are able to be operated. So what's that landscape look like?
Right. So actually, I'm glad you asked that. One of the attorneys that assists us, she writes the legal opinion for AUVSI. So we are absolutely able to solicit her for assistance on aviation law. Toward that, at the state level at least, we have secured, so we demoed for the governor's office. And the governor's office, what they actually gave us from that was, if there are any legislative or policy regulatory roadblocks, barriers, speed bumps in our way, to seek them out, solicit them, work, and they will work with us. They will work with the authority of the governor's office to call a special session. So we don't have to wait 2 years for a legislative session to try to change the law. They will do that. And I mean, who's gonna say no to this?
Yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
So everything you're saying, like
Magical.
clear need. Obviously, I want these things protecting me.
You want them in your child's school.
There are bound to be some people who, whether they just like to be contrarian or whatever, are going to point out some sort of, this is another form of Big Brother. What
They try
does
that.
mean?
Right, they try that. That happens. We're used to hearing that. It is not capable of surveillance. It does not have the range. We actually have this on our website. We call this the no list. Okay? There is a list of things that we will not do. I will not make weapons. I will throw this in the Gulf before I'll turn it into a weapon. I can't stop anyone else necessarily, but I will not do it for you. So that's, first things first. We do not work directly with DARPA. We will do things for DOD through our partners. We do make this available to, but with the caveat, it was not designed for the battlefield, so making it available to the military in those scenarios in which it can be used. On top of that, this is not capable of surveillance. It's not capable of, it doesn't have things like it can't recognize you. It does not distinguish between friend and foe. It has no idea who anyone is. It can distinguish individuals as unique from one another, but does not know who you are. It doesn't need to. Okay? What it needs to know is where the gun is and where the hand is. And that is all it does. That's another thing that we make the sheriff's departments that we work with aware of, that if they want to use this with border, please let us know so we can come and get it. Because we will not allow this to be used in border situations. Again, it does not have the range to be useful in a border situation. It does not, and also, we're not going to step in that.
This is wild to me, and there's so many places I want to go with it. This ability to call a special session and work with legislators to make this happen if there are any roadblocks, amazing. I would actually kind of expect that to be the case with something that has such life-saving implications. Forgive me for being a little bit jaded with policy in general. Is there any fear of, okay, we'll scratch your back, we'll help make this available, we'll remove this roadblock, but what if they have some ask that they come to you with and say, like, well, we want you to do this now?
Well, tough. We own the patent.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? Well, what do I have to threaten? I will dissolve the company and reforming Costa Rica. I mean, it's a free country. You can't stop me from throwing it away. Okay? If I have to, ultimately, that is exactly what we will do.
Yeah.
And our principles have a lot to do with a lot of the VC backing that we have has an awful lot to do with the fact that there are certain things that we stand on that, I mean, I will die on that hill. And quite frankly, that brings me to another point. Would you bet your life? Is something that I've said a couple of times. We mean this quite literally. I will be the first one who bets their life. I will be standing on the business end of that drone when the trigger is pulled the first time. It's going to be me. Yeah, you got to be a certain level of nuts.
Yeah.
And in order to be the CEO of this company, that's what it takes.
What's the timeline for a test like that?
July 2019.
July 2019. Is that going to be like a live stream?
Oh, Jesus God. I mean, who wants to see me get killed? I know, right? No, this is absolutely going to work. I'm not going to do this until we know that for a fact. Actually, that's an excellent question. We were actually planning on doing it on stage.
This is
somewhere.
like
Wow.
a spaceman type display
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Ultimately, when you stop and you think about the considerations of setting up a demo where you deliberately fire a gun at someone, the legal implications alone, this is why we have a bunch of attorneys
Yeah.
that help us with things like this.
Even without the development costs that you guys are putting sweat equity into, this seems very capital intensive. You've mentioned VC funding. What does that look like? To what level have you
if we had
received that?
I know, right? No, if we had to pay for development, we've done all of this. Everything that I just described, we've done this on $750,000.
Wow.
I know, right? The world needs this. Quite frankly, everyone wants us to win. Everyone wants us to win. And because of that, we are gifted with a certain level of assistance in material and in, sometimes immaterial ways. And when I say material, I mean sometimes we are given things, sometimes we are given labor, sometimes we have attorneys will volunteer pro bono. I mean, people will do things at cost, and we are able to get things done that we shouldn't have been able to get done because the thing that we are doing is what it is.
You mentioned earlier that, and this is beforehand, so you mentioned that you guys had to close your pre-order round due to excessive demand. You mentioned that there's 19 schools in Texas that are
16 agencies, 19 schools.
16 agencies, 19 schools, all extremely interested.
They've all signed on.
They've all signed on.
Yeah.
So schools and agencies aren't known for paying their bills incredibly fast.
We know.
Okay.
So how did we do that?
Yeah.
So we raised a private grant.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have private funding available to pay for the first several regions that we deployed to, and we're doing this not because people won't pay for it, but because we cannot wait. The world cannot wait. People are dying. So we raised this money expressly, as you mentioned. I mean, police chiefs are extremely cautious. They're extremely measured. They're extremely intelligent. They're extremely risk averse, obviously. So one of the things that we do to ensure that this is to eliminate friction and to accelerate the adoption is we bring the money. We bring the money with us, the financing with us. When I walk up to the commissioner's court, they're like, so you want a grant for this? And I'm like, no, I'm bringing you a grant. Because no, here's the money to pay for it. To which the response is, any city manager, any mayor, any police chief, throw them in the truck. I'll take two.
Yeah.
Where do I sign? Absolutely. And like I said, this is absolutely private money that we are able to pull together, aside from the funding for the R&D that is explicitly and exclusively earmarked specifically to implement our technology and provide that to these agencies.
So if this were to gain mass adoption, 10,000 schools, 10,000 agencies in the United States, is this something that you would have to raise? I mean, you can't grant your way to that.
There's
size,
no way
right?
we would even try.
Okay.
Yeah, no. The regions that we're doing this for, this is a skeleton of the initial program. We're literally standing up the nascent programs. None of them have a drone or robotics program to begin with. So that's part of what our partners are providing to them, the backbone for the program that is going to continue on into the future. In one sense, one of the things that we will sometimes refer to this is the new Crown Vic.
Talk to me more about the timeline. If you're going to do this test in July 2019, you have these agencies lined up. When would you expect this to be out in the world actively?
So we will have the first prototypes ready by summer 2019. And when I say prototypes, these are prototypes. They are production level prototypes. We will be fully into production in Q1 or Q2 2020. And that's when we will be mass production ready. We will be able to deploy at scale. That's another thing we simply can't anticipate. We can't expect to deploy at scale any earlier than that.
How are you guys building these? Is it a vertically integrated workshop that you have, or is it like, can you outsource this?
So degree of the engineering, like for example, the hardware engineering, we are partnered with Arrow and D3. Like I said, we're very fortunate. We're very honored to have been selected for that. And Arrow is our logistics partner at this point.
Okay. I'm sure you answer this question all the time and you would love to answer it. How do you guys protect against other people getting remote control over these drones?
Ask me what happens when somebody hacks the drones.
What happens when someone hacks the drones?
I know, right? This is actually going to be the subject of a DEF CON talk. So one of our investors is one of the lead developers at RSA. And he's an investor in us expressly so that he can come work for us. He will be our CISO. I know, that's world class. That's hard to top. Yeah, you should ask me about the rest of our team. Wow, they make me look like a pipsqueak. So the drones, we do have a security scenario. So I have a very strong security background, and obviously it's never a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. I have always been blue team, and toward that I am very good at this. So when the drones are inevitably hacked, the question is what happens next? That is always what you need to concern. Like that's where you need to focus your planning. So the drones will all go home. So the one that was compromised will go home, which is now your face. It is now headed straight for the individual. It's going to, if you don't have the control mechanisms necessary, that I can't detail those out, but there is specialized custom hardware that is necessary. If the drone identifies that it has lost connection to this, it will simply go home. It is now headed straight for your face. And if it was part of a fleet or a swarm, the rest of them identified that one of their members has suffered a critical malfunction and they are now headed straight for your face.
It's like bees.
With machine guns. Because quite frankly, it's kind of like trying to throw a ball for a canine. I assure you that the police are not going to be thrilled with you. They're now hot in pursuit of the drones.
Yeah.
As the drones will have identified that they have suffered a critical malfunction, the cops are now going after them to retrieve them.
What's your estimated cost of production for one unit?
For one unit, obviously this fluctuates at this time. It's not perfectly gelled, but somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25 grand. Yeah, they're not cheap. Sorry, we're working on it. We're trying to force the costs down. Obviously, this is always a consideration. Once we can get them down to under $10,000 a unit, at that point we will be ready to mass produce, and at that point, hopefully, we will see at least nationwide adoption.
What's the largest cost in that 25K? Because it seems like most of it's variable. If you can get it down to under 10. Mm-hmm. So what's so
mass production?
It's just mass production.
Yeah, it's very much so. It's a lot of mass production. It's because, quite frankly, if you're assembling each of these components and these sensors by hand, you have to. There's a point at which you have to stop and manually. Right now, we have to manually flash the hardware. That has to be. There are FPGA considerations that have to be, and if you're familiar with FPGA development, the setup is extremely intense. I'm a veteran programmer, and it takes me half an hour just to spin up a board. Just that alone, getting it ready to accept our hardware, to start running our technology, takes me all day. So yeah, it's mass production. That is absolutely what we anticipate. Arrow is going to solve that for us because they are wizards.
What do margins look like on this? Is this because you're selling to the public, so it's going to be publicly disclosed? Is it? So yeah, what we offered specifically to public agencies, all public agencies, we give them so what we normally do for B2B on 12 months, they get 18 months. So they get 33% more of this technology than commercial customers. And so that's pretty much, and also we have, I can't go into too terribly much detail, but we have a system for offsetting the costs of all of these, because we believe very strongly that these need to happen. We have a way of offsetting costs, so we are still determining just how far we can offset.
How much do you have to then train if somebody purchases? How much time is sent in your manpower from your team to train them how to use this?
Zero. It's our
Zero.
partners who do so. Our partners, the police who train other cops to fly drones, they're the ones who cover that. It is a 3-month. So let me explain that just a little bit. Also, NDAs, there's only so much I can say about their program. It is the only kind like it in the world. They are the best drone pilots that exist. The ways that, so you think about how people drive cars, right? You have to go and, driver's ed, right? The way that people go to driver's ed, and how long does it take to get through driver's ed and get your driver's license?
Forever.
Now, think about how cops drive cars. It's kind of like being a stunt driver, except all of this is real. Okay, it's exactly the same with how they fly drones. They fly drones in ways that no one else even thinks about flying drones. They have to do things with these aerial craft that I cannot describe. They can get people to respond to them in certain ways as a consequence. They can achieve certain effects that you wouldn't even think about. They have 15 years of experience in producing these effects, and it takes about 3 or 4 months to get through their program. It is extremely intense. It involves going out in the field. You can't pass their test without having gone out in the field. You have to be able to maintain control of that drone, just like the vehicle that they're driving. They have to maintain control of it, even when they're flipping it around, crashing into things on purpose, and trying to ensure that no one gets hurt.
So the shield part of this system is to get in between the bullet and a person, mm-hmm. and block it.
Absolutely.
How often does it work, or what's the efficacy of 2 bullets being fired in rapid succession? Does it always hit the second bullet? Is there a lag?
So yeah, you will aim for the drone. Okay, that's a human reflex.
Oh.
It is extremely. Do you remember in Terminator 2 where Sarah, she's running through the hall, she tosses the keys to the guard, and the guard, he reaches his hands up and catches them. He knows how dangerous she is. He knows. And yet he does it anyway, and she sucker punches him. Yeah, that's That's the reflex that we're exploiting.
Follow up to my question. That kind of answers my question in terms of like a handgun, but what about something that sprays a little bit more?
So like a shotgun?
Sure, a shotgun
Or an
or
automatic
even
weapon.
just like a bad
The drone is
automatic
going to
weapon.
be so annoying that like seriously, getting around it is, you will not be able to swing that gun with any degree of accuracy fast enough for you to be able to shoot around the drone. The drone is extremely agile. That's one of the reasons why we use them.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question because I could imagine multiple bullets
Yeah.
coming.
Quite frankly, once you're in that situation, even a trained combatant is only thinking about getting rid of the drone. And that is the drone's job, is to be gotten rid of. It's to be the task that impedes the task becomes the task, which gives you, the human, the opportunity to do something. Throw your shoes at them, tackle them, pants them, whatever you got to, run away, whatever you have to do. Get out of there. If you see our drones coming past, you need to go the other way.
If a drone takes impact, does it need to be replaced, or does it, like, how
It
long
depends.
can it stay in service?
That depends. And we don't really have a firm upper limit of how much damage they can take before they're defeated. You can defeat this with your t-shirt, quite frankly. If you throw your shirt on this thing, you're going to foul the road. It will let you. It will let you. The cop will arrest you, but it will allow you to do so. It's just like a canine. If you throw a ball to a canine, the canine will probably react, and the cop will arrest you for messing with their dog.
So obviously, you've publicly said here that you would bet your life on this technology. If it's in service, is there any type of liability on the company of Astral AR, some sort of insurance you have to carry?
We position ourselves like Taser.
And how is that?
Quite frankly, what is a taser for? A taser is for electrocuting people in order to stop them from doing whatever it is that they're doing. Taser is not responsible if police, like for example, misuse a taser, or if there is a malfunction or just a freak accident or whatever happens, and someone loses their life or is seriously injured, because that is absolutely something that can happen with a taser. They are not safe, they are weapons. If that happens, Taser is not liable. We position ourselves like Taser. So, and by the way, yes, we absolutely do have legal representation and insurance in for those scenarios. But it's real hard to sue Taser too.
So when we left geography, you were in Baltimore, you had gone to South by Southwest. Now you guys are in Austin, is that correct?
We were always in Austin.
Oh, you were always in Austin?
Yep.
Okay, so I misunderstood that.
Yeah, we
All
were
right.
always. This had to happen in Austin.
I know where he's going about location, what Austin means to you guys. I want to touch on your team real quick, as you kind of said. And I want to start with one more question on you running this company as a CEO now. You've mentioned that you're one of the most talented people from a technical standpoint to develop this. How do you prioritize your time in active development versus...
There was a point at which I was, like I said, I built the prototype. The original prototypes, that was all me. We are long past a point where I can devote any time towards anything other than, I was an architect. Okay, that was, I mean, designing these things, designing these systems, the functionality, and knowing so intricately what this is, what it's capable of, how long it should take, and how much it's going to cost was absolutely what that was my career for at least 5 years. And so that is what when I step up to the whiteboard and it needs to do this, it needs to do that, and here is why, okay? And then soliciting other engineers, because the cool thing about having such a strong engineering background is that you can't blow smoke up my ass. It doesn't work. So when I'm looking for other engineers who can assist me, I know exactly what their skill set needs to be, and I know what, yes, you can help me, no, you cannot. And if you cannot, that's okay, that's nothing personal, but quite frankly, people are dying, I'll get back with you. So yeah, when I'm looking for someone who can pick up and actually write the code, I know what the code looks like that needs to be written. I do not micromanage people, and I know better than to try and be a manager who modifies a code base. Yeah, I've worked for that guy. Oh my God.
So tell me now about the other members of your team.
Okay.
And we can't get too deep into it because we don't have a whole lot of time, but give me a high level, who else is rounding out the team?
Right, so obviously my co-founder, Jose La Placa Amigo, veteran of the U.S. Air Force, College of the Air Force and so forth, myself, and let's see, our CPO is Mary Kelly, and she comes to us from several substantial startups, strong SV background. She was a project manager. She actually has a legal assistant background, and I got to tell you, that is awesome. Yeah, so we're able to leverage that as well. We are being joined by Alexis Sachin, COO. She's coming on as our COO. She was the former VP of Ops for Blackstone. And yeah, right. We're also being joined by Dr. Donna Dulo, and I cannot express, if I were going to hand over the CTO reins to anyone, it would be Dr. Dulo. Dr. Dulo is the Dean of Sophia College. She's Dean of the College of the Coast Guard, and she invented the master's, she had a PhD, Juris Doctor, Well, just wait till I get going. She has more master's degrees than fit on the cover of the book. She wrote the law book on aviation law in the United States as it pertains to SUAS and SUAV. She is extremely influential in terms of crafting policy. She is the legal opinion for AUVSI. And as an engineer, oh my God, I want to be just like her when I grow up. Yeah, she's so cool. And also, she invented the master's degree for SUAS, SUAV, software engineering as it exists in the United States. Yeah, she and Mae Jemison, Dr. Mae Jemison. Does that name sound familiar? Because not everybody gets to grow up to be an astronaut. Yeah, Mae Jemison, Dr. Jemison, and Dr. Dulo had competing space initiatives. Yeah, they were rivals at one point for their space initiatives. This woman, I know, right? To be joining our team in a technical sense, Q1 2019.
Are all these people full-time or going to be full-time? Or is this like some are full-time?
Yes,
and then
full-time.
All full-time?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. And we also have Joe Dobson. He is our CFO, MBA, BSCS MBA. I know, right?
You've raised $750,000 and you have a pretty senior team coming on. What does burn look like? What does runway look like? Are you going to raise again?
Yeah, no, we are raising at this time. The fact that we've been able to make it this far has everything to do with our team is so dedicated to making this happen that we have this thing at Astral, right? We were covered by Forbes. You may have read about that. Yeah. So everybody at Astral gets paid the same, which means right now that nobody at Astral gets paid anything. Jose and I haven't been paid in almost 4 years. Hey, it's whatever. We have to do this. So everyone at Astral feels the pain, and everyone at Astral is working towards this regardless. We are raising around because that is just ridiculous. I mean, for God's sakes, why can't I should be able to get some funding and some backing for this, right? Our white papers were just published by the IEEE. One of the things we get is, oh, I don't believe you. I don't care. The police understand that this is real, and that's what I care about. They will be betting their lives, not you. And if you don't like it, you can step off. But toward that, yes, we are raising, and like I said, if you can disbelieve me if you want to. Our white papers were published by the IEEE, peer-reviewed. We presented at the Global Humanitarian Tech Conference, and if you think that I can blow smoke up the asses of an entire convention full of engineers, that's just adorable. Okay, I mean, I'm flattered, right? I'm flattered.
Last question for me. Being in Austin, obviously you were already in Austin, which is why this is there now, but how has that impacted Astral? Like, is Austin a naturally good place for this type of company?
Austin is probably the only place where this could have taken place because first off, you have to have the Texas, it's Texas for God's sakes. Everyone in Texas loves their guns. This is absolutely true. Everyone in Texas has at least 5 guns, except for me. But yeah, so it had to be in Texas because everyone in Texas loves their guns, but it had to be in Austin because Austin is the blueberry in the tomato soup. Okay? It's the place where everyone is liberal enough to be like, we're going to solve this as long as you don't take my guns.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, I love Austin, I love Texas.
I can't think of a worse sounding soup.
Isn't it just the
Blueberry tomato?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
That's
mushed
right up
up
there.
crackers on that.
That's right up there with brushing your teeth and drinking orange juice.
Wow. Well, Leah, thank you so much for joining us. After the show, if people want to learn more about you or Astral AR, where should they go?
Go to the website. You will not see anything technical about the website, but you can contact us through the website and make your case, and we will send you the white papers.
Great.
Hey everyone, we're here at CES, and today's podcast is brought to you from the Blue Microphones podcast suite at CES 2019. You probably know Blue from their best-selling Yeti mic that's all over the internet. In fact, Jay and I built Upside on the back of the Yeti mic. This week at CES, Blue is announcing the Ember. It's a new studio XLR microphone for professional recording, YouTube production, streaming, and podcasting. It's $99. Blue offers a full range of premium USB and XLR studio mics, which we're actually recording with today. From podcasting to YouTube to music, if you're a storyteller, Blue wants to help you amplify your voice. Visit bluedesigns.com to learn more.
All right, Eric, we just got done speaking with a very intense Leah La Salla of Astral AR. Now let's get into our deal memo. Let's talk about Astral as an investment opportunity, Leah as a founder. Where do you want to start?
Let's take a walk down adjective alley. You started with intense. If you're going to define Astral and Leah in a couple adjectives, what would you use besides intense?
Besides intense?
intense.
Obviously, I wanted intense.
Yeah, I wanted to use intense too, but you started the deal memo off with intense. So now we're going down a whole different path. I'm looking for second level thinking here, Jay.
Okay. One would be urgent. I felt a real sense of urgency here.
I like that. I would go with driven. There is a sense of no matter what question we asked, it always came back to the mission of Astral.
I would agree with that. Very purposeful.
Very convicted. Look at us.
Adjective Alley.
Adjective Alley. It's a new segment here on Upside. But to bring it back to Leah and Astral, I would say that she says that they are solving a wicked problem, and no less than 5 times she said people are dying and this is a real problem, and it definitely made the interview intense and wasn't something that I was used to on Upside. But I respect and understand her level of conviction and drive and intensity because of the real nature of the problem.
Yeah, these are serious issues that we're talking about here. And I'll tell you, the biggest struggle I had through this interview, and we'll probably have here in this deal memo, is the personal cognitive dissonance between the need to address these problems, the problems that Astral is addressing, and my inability to wrap my head around the business model for Astral.
I wrote down at the top of my notebook after we finished our interview, how do I separate emotion from facts? So I think it is very real for both of us, and I'm going to project, but I would guess the listeners, that there is a emotional tie to the message and the meaning, but it is our job to still to think about this from the point of angel investors, pre-seed investors, seed investors. Think about the opportunity in front of us, because it's our job to be stewards of capital in this hypothetical space that we sit.
That's right. If we were sitting here as philanthropists, different set of questions, different line of thought. But I mean, I think you can hear it in the interview. We are still hitting the questions that we would be asking any founder. And we're saying, okay, tell us about the customer, tell us about the model, tell us about how you're going to scale this, tell us about how this reacts in different situations. Because we're looking to see, okay, can we see how this becomes a sustainable business? You know, I'm not saying it can't be, but I'm just saying as we go through this deal memo, I know I'm going to be struggling with this dissonance between, like you said, fact and emotion, and understanding the value proposition here versus understanding the revenue model and cost structure here.
So I think one way to get around that is to not start with Leah. We've already done a little bit of an adjective walk, but let's start instead with some shadows. Let's break down our cognitive dissonance with critical thinking and start with a shadow and build ourselves either back up or to some other end goal. There is a saying that if it sounds too good to be true, then it is. And this idea sounds, I believe Leah used the word magical, and I would agree with that. It feels too good to be true. It's a defense-only mechanism. It spots guns and bullets through walls and can find things in chambers, and they come with the money. So, like, cities don't have to pay. They have private grants. They've thought through all the hacking. Everything just feels too good to be true. And I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I got the same vibe. And mostly, I buy the technology. I buy that they've had success bringing grants to cities and saying we can help pay for this. I don't understand how that scales up and to what degree, because those are very overhead intensive things in terms of people time and relationship building. I think, you know, maybe they hit it big with so much PR that some huge partner comes in and just says, we are going to back this because we know that Black Lives Matter back this, that the Fraternal Order of the Police backs this. I could see that happening, but to this point, you know, you heard the frustration in Leah's voice at one point. She said, you would think I'd be able to get some funding for this, right? And to me, that's a shadow of, I think we're not the only ones feeling these things, and maybe other people know more than we do. I just have unanswered questions. Like I don't feel like I have my own sense of conviction for the model and the opportunity, while also feeling a sense of conviction for if this is working and it's worth testing. If it's working, like we want these things active and solving real problems.
Right. Is your hesitation around the operational side of the model, the financial side of the model, where would be an area that you'd want more clarity? Because I think we got some clarity everywhere, but not full clarity almost anywhere except for the team.
This is the frustrating thing because on its surface, you would think the technology aspect of this is the most complex. But that's where I have the least questions. I have questions around just about everything else. The financials, how they employ it, how the team scales this up. I mean, a unit costs $25,000 to produce. At the same time, you know, they've done everything they've done to this point on $750,000, which sounds impressive. The team is doing it without having taken a paycheck in 4 years. Leah is clearly extremely solid technically, as I believe her team is. But I feel like I just didn't get super specific answers to a lot of our questions. How many police-involved shootings happen in a year? A lot. How big is this market opportunity? Raise your hand if you want to get shot. These aren't helping me with my questions as an investor. That being said, 16 agencies, 19 schools, those are numbers that are compelling. Tell me more about that.
Bringing the cost under $10,000 by partnering with Arrow. I agree. See, that's what I'm saying. There are some pointers to specificity that help me believe in the magic, but I keep coming back to this idea of it feels almost just like too good.
There was, I don't remember if it was actually on our show or if it was a different podcast I listened to with a venture capitalist. Nope, it was. It was the episode we quote all the time of Invest Like the Best with Josh Wolf, where he was talking about founders. And he mentioned there are some founders that are super technically competent. There are some founders that are great salespeople and great at getting buy-in for their vision. And then there's some founders that are both. And the founders who are both are like the real magical founders that you want to and have to back. I believe Leah is extremely technically competent and for the most part really got me on the vision too. But there's that little bit of a hump where I wasn't completely sold to understand how this all ties together and how it's all going to work that I think was missing here, which is, you know, where a lot of my hesitation is coming from.
Let's transition away from the hesitancy and into the market size. It feels like this is, just because of the price point, going to be a large market. But I think we need to think about the implications of selling to police, firefighters, and schools. I don't know that it's the most profitable side of things.
I think it's large from the standpoint of users and people who are benefited. And I think it's large in terms of revenue potential, top line revenue potential. It doesn't necessarily seem large to me in terms of actual customer number.
Why not?
Because if your customers, and maybe I just am underestimating the number of agencies and schools nationwide and potentially globally, but if your customers are schools, agencies, or municipalities, from the municipality side of things, I know when I was knee-deep in smart city technology and smart city startups, it was hard for me to see a lot of compelling smart city technology plays because it was just a naturally small market. And when you're selling to municipalities, you're also limited to their budgets. You know, that's why Leah said we come with the money. And there are certain levels of budget that if you fit within, it's easier to get approval. At South by Southwest last year, I went to a panel where they talked about selling startup technology to cities. And one of the founders on the panel spoke about how every founder he talks to is designing their solution to be $10,000 because that's what they can fit into a municipality budget. And another founder that I talked to in Michigan said what Leah said, which is basically to sell to municipalities, I go to them with the buyer, with the funder of our technology, and then they take it. So from a pure customer size, if we're looking at the market from the number of customers, I do think it is less big than what it would feel like when you think about the number of people this protects.
So if you include every college campus security department, tribal land unit, sheriff office, local police department, state police department, and every federal agency, you get to 17,985 police departments in the United States. You figure fire departments is roughly that amount as well, because that's a proxy for municipalities. It's probably a little less for fire departments. And schools is probably about the same as fire departments, maybe a little less. So really, you're looking at a total customer base of somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 potential customers.
How many of those are going to have budget? How many of those are going to see the real risk? I mean, larger cities, we're seeing the risk and we're seeing the implications of not having protection. We're seeing the implications of our accessibility to firearms in this country. So my question is, how many of those municipalities, schools, agencies are going to say, this is something our municipality, school needs? And how many years, hopefully, until we have better protection from a like societal and policy level, that we don't have a private company saying, this is at mission critical, we're going to do something about it now?
Yeah, I think your point on big cities might be a little off. I'm thinking about watching cops growing up. I was never in big cities, the standoffs that were in there. I'm thinking about hearing about meth labs and shootings in London, Ohio, and Mansfield, and cities that are smaller or in the sticks. I think that this problem exists outside of big cities. I think it exists kind of everywhere that guns are present, which is most places in the United States, to be honest. So I don't think that I would limit the scope to big cities for the police department side of things. I can see where you're coming from on the school side of things, because school budgets are going to be a lot harder to crack. But the sales pitch to a municipality of, hey, we don't want your police officers to die, and this is a very effective way to help mitigate the potential that police officers are killed in action, that to me is a very promising sell regardless of price point. It's why the police buy tasers, and it's why they spend a lot of money on guns. They don't want their officers put in a position to die. I also think that SWAT units would be huge buyers of this, and very quick buyers of this, because if you can, SWAT units are the ones that get called in for school shootings. They're the ones that get called in for all this. So if they could identify where a gun is or a bomb is behind a wall, that's going to help them dramatically. I also think when we're talking about market opportunity, it's something that Leah touched on, but we didn't dive down, is military implications. I don't know the extent to which they have looked down this path. She said they don't do anything with DARPA. They don't do much with the DoD. But to me, this seems like, and I'm not a military guy, the furthest I have gone, like in terms of military understanding, is like playing Call of Duty. So forgive me if I am ignorant at all on this, but walking down the streets and having to dip into houses, I feel like this would be a very valuable technology to have if it could see through walls and you knew what was kind of happening inside before you went in there. Or maybe they already have that technology. I don't know.
Yeah, she said they made it. She had a very specific phrase that I don't want to pretend I'm saying verbatim, but I believe she said along the lines of, we made it accessible to the DoD, but we will not allow this to be turned into a weapon. I'll throw it into the Gulf before it is turned into a weapon. And I think it's hard to explore the military space while maintaining enough control that it won't be turned into a weapon. I think given her conviction and her values and virtues, I just don't think it's a fit.
Does that give you pause?
I think that
as an investor, not it. Let's separate that emotion from the fact.
I don't think it gives me pause if I can prove that there is opportunity outside of that. I do think that it could be a compelling market to sell a technology solution to, but I do think that it would be used, or they would want to reserve the rights to be able to use it in use cases that Leah does not intend. So I just don't think that she's going to go down that path. And I don't think it's going to give me pause as an investor. I actually really like that if I'm an investor who's investing in this for the reasons that Leah is building it for. But I just don't think we can really look at that as much of a market potential for Astral.
Let's close this off with Leah and her team. What's your take on Leah and her team?
Very impressive individuals. And it seems like they're really, really bought into the cause. She mentioned her founder, who has been shot and has been working with her in the trenches for 4 years. Neither of them have taken a paycheck. They're very strong engineers with a strong engineering background. Leah talking about the autonomous drone piloting software she built. That's wild. That's crazy. That's awesome. That could be a product in and of itself that she goes and tries to market and sell, but she's really staking her life's work right now on this, which I really, really respect. So the conviction for me is there. If I'm going to be a little bit critical, I think what's missing for Astral in closing this round and getting funding and going and just continuing to do this at a higher and higher level is what's missing from our interaction from Leah. We're not sitting here saying like, yep, this is a killer opportunity. I would throw my money at it right now. And that's not to say that it isn't and that they don't have the answers and the potential in front of them. I just don't think it was a message to me. And as a CEO and as a founder, you have to be able to message that so that we're sitting here saying, yeah, where do I send the check? So I think the team needs that person, even if it's that person who's preparing notes and messaging that Leah works from.
And is that what you want to see in the next 6 to 18 months?
I want to see growth in that area for sure. And I think it might be seen from who else comes in and supports this financially and what are their motivations. If someone comes in financially as a philanthropic effort, I don't think that changes my stance right now as a venture investor. But if I start to see real venture investors coming in and backing this, I think that's powerful. If I see a financial forecast and projection that shows me how this works at any level of scale, that would change my mind as a venture investor. And this is maybe the most critical I've ever been in a deal memo, because I feel so conflicted about this, because I want to sit here and say, yes, this is magic. This sounds magical. And I'm completely signing off and saying, I believe in the black box that is the technology. But I just did not get the answers I needed in the interview to say, like, this makes sense as a financial investment.
Jay, I completely agree with you. This is definitely a little more critical than we usually are in a deal memo, but I think that when you really get a wicked problem and you get some emotion behind it, you want it to really, really work. I want this to really, really work. So I agree with everything you said. In the next 6 to 18 months, I look forward to seeing what Leah and her team create. I look forward to seeing the live stream of the first product launch in July, which is crazy. And as Leah said, you have to be a certain level of nuts to go stand up there on stage and get shot at. And I think that Leah, the team, and the idea is a certain level of nuts, and I look forward to seeing it all work out. So, Jay, if people want to talk about this episode or Astral AR, where can they do that?
I can't believe we didn't touch on the live stream demo of being shot at in this deal memo until this point, but that was definitely a mic drop moment in the interview. Wild. If you guys have thoughts on this episode, please tweet at us at UpsideFM or email us hello@upside.fm. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes. It really helps go a long way in bringing on high-quality guests to the show. We'll talk to you next week. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's guest, so shoot us an email at hello@upside.fm or find us on Twitter at UpsideFM. We'll be back here next week at the same time talking to another founder in our quest to find upside outside of Silicon Valley. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please email us or find us on Twitter and let us know. And if you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes. That goes a long way in helping us spread the word and continue to help bring high-quality guests to the show. Eric and I decided there were a couple things we wanted to share with you at the end of the podcast, and so here we go. Eric Hornung and Jay Klaus are the founding parties of the Upside podcast. At the time of this recording, we do not own equity or other financial interest in the companies which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Duff & Phelps LLC and its affiliates, Unreal Collective LLC and its affiliates, or any entity which employ us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. We have not considered your specific financial situation nor provided any investment advice on this show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Never mind, bro, that can't be matched. I'm lighting it on fire, used to run victory laps, and still I'm not even tired. It's all about the timing, yeah, that's what they say. Well, I'ma keep on rhyming, find a way.